Hello, everyone. My name is Rohan Nagi, a second year MBA student and president of the Data Analytics Club at Brandeis University. Today, we are joined by Kevin Wright, a senior delivery principal and consultant at Slalom, a modern consulting firm focused on strategy, technology, and business transformation. I've had the pleasure of working with Kevin in the past, so I am thrilled to have him here today to talk to us about the intricacies of data analytics and technology consulting. So, without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Kevin, and allow you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your role and about Slalom, the company at which you work.
Hi, my name is Kevin Wright. I'm a senior delivery principal at Slalom Consulting. I have been involved in data and analytics consulting in some form or fashion for approximately 15 years. I have worked with Slalom for about 4 years in total, broken up when I worked for another company for a period. Um, but yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Kevin. Thrilled to have you here. To get started into this interview, could you please just describe your journey into the field of data analytics? What interested you? What got you to where you are today? And why are you in it for the future?
Sure. So I graduated college in 2005 with a computer engineering degree, and pretty much the only thing I knew coming out of that was that I didn't want to do computer engineering. It was a great degree. It had a lot of fantastic aspects to it, but I wanted to be a programmer at that point. So I found myself working for a fairly small company, and just through a variety of weird circumstances, just kind of fell backwards into IBM consulting. And as soon as I landed on my first IBM consulting gig, I was doing master data management projects. And I didn't know it, but that would really be what started my journey into data and analytics. Doing MDM server implementation was very technical for me for quite a while. I spent it was literally doing customizations, building out extensions and extending the product to do things that our clients needed. I actually spent most of my first 4 years in consulting working in Rhode Island and Boston, doing that kind of work for a single client up there. Excuse me. So that was all pretty exciting. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was traveling consulting, and as a young guy, I just couldn't get enough of that. I wound up kind of bouncing around a little bit. Every couple of years, I would find something a little more exciting, and it would also push me a little more and more in a very in a softer to the softer side of consulting, which was less technical. So I worked for a company called Stream Integration after IBM. They've later been acquired, but then I wound up working for InfoTrellis, which I wound up coming back to ultimately. Then I went to Slalom, and I really love working at Slalom. They kind of pushed me to be pretty quickly a lot more of a softer consultant. By that I mean, strategic thinking, a lot more work being done in PowerPoint rather than in code. We're still doing a good bit of analysis through like spreadsheets and stuff like that. But a lot of the output that I was making was through PowerPoint. I received a really great offer kind of in the middle of my tenure there, and it was going to be running some pre-sales operations for the newly rebranded and purchased company, which is where I actually met Rohan, and that was Mastech InfoTrellis. So I worked there for a period before going back to Slalom. But the work I've done with Slalom's been fantastic. I've gone back and forth with I still provide kind of a technical lens to a lot of the work that we do, but it's become very strategic. I do master data management in general, but I've done a lot of work in data management, which is just more data type driven projects. I guess anything like that I've been involved with.
So, would you say kind of the technical background that you had developed early on in your career allowed you to kind of build a solid foundation for where you're at now?
Yes, and maybe a little bit of no. I mean, for me, it helps me to understand what are we doing, what are we putting together, and what's it going to look like at the end. And let me give you an example by what I mean by that. So like when I see a master data management issue, just a data management issue, I like to think of it in terms of, okay, well, let's work back to front. Let's think about if we fix this, if we find some way to merge these systems together or merge this particular data set together, well, what would it actually look like? What kind of tooling would actually do that? So keeping that in the back of my mind's always been kind of helpful for, just for being able to solution kind of what we're trying to do. So I found it kind of helpful. And then on the other side of the coin, I feel like that might limit you a little bit too, because in a lot of consulting, we talk about the art of the possible versus, what are we limited by in technology today? So, I think it's mostly a good thing that I come from a technical background.
That's really great to hear. And I think for students who are in a particular program like us, I think having that understanding that it's a fine balance between what you learn and what you kind of apply,
Yeah.
that's something that's very crucial to take away. Thank you for sharing that insight. With that said, there are many students who are interested in consulting careers after graduating. Could you speak a little on data analytics consulting projects specifically, like you just have, and the typical intricacies of those projects at a company like Slalom? Maybe
Yeah.
share another example.
So, there's all sorts of different types of data and analytics projects. I already kind of alluded to the data management type, the strategy type projects that I've been involved in. And I mean, those are typically a little more experience involved there. But what I see a lot of right now is people coming out of college with relatively less experience, let's say, in the data fields, being asked deep analytical questions just to understand, can you learn, can you do these things? And that's what we really want to see right now is just people who can pick up skills. The types of projects that we do are so varied. We have very technical projects as well. I kind of, I don't do them as much as I used to, but we do a lot of AWS data engineering type roles, which is a lot of get data from point A to point B and maybe transform it along the way. You call it ETL jobs 15 years ago. We do business transfer, or excuse me, we do cloud transformation projects in general. We do data warehouse transformation, and a lot of that's moving stuff to the cloud. In fact, I'd say the vast majority is really moving stuff to the cloud. Um, but we also do data science. We do AI and machine learning. We have a whole analytics center of excellence at one of our clients that we maintain. So there's all sorts of availability. And in my mind, if you're interested in getting started in this kind of work, bringing just that inquisitive, analytical mindset to the table is what's the most important thing.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think a lot of the students really appreciate those insights, as I know a lot of them are looking to get into such careers. So, following up on kind of what you said about the way things have been going and the way you'd like to see things going, we have to kind of address the elephant in the room, which is COVID-19.
Yeah.
How have data analytics and general business transformation, as you mentioned, or digital transformation initiatives been through the pandemic? And what are some of the key focus areas for such initiatives now and heading into the future?
Yeah. Well, shockingly, I mean, I expected entire industry downturn. And this time last year, well, maybe not this time last year, it's February, but come April, May of last year, I was expecting just disaster. I was really wrong about that. Particularly in the fields that I've been working in. And I've worked with, I mean, not a lot of guesswork to be done, but I've been working with a really large beverage manufacturer in Atlanta. I've been working with just some other companies that do a lot of work in Atlanta, and they're transforming their business as fast as they can because they have to. They've been driven to become much more efficient, much more quickly than they had anticipated. It's kind of exciting. I think it's scary from a working there standpoint, but there's a lot of cloud transformation we're seeing, enablement of virtual work. And I talk about Slalom and I'm talking about DNA, but we have several other kind of pillars of Slalom, like strategy and operations, custom development that we do. We have a number of different parts of our company that stay very busy. One of which also does organization changes, helps to do that kind of work. So we've actually been about busy as could have hoped throughout the pandemic. But to your point about business and cloud transformation, I mean, that's been just on steroids from what I see lately. It's been a lot of work around that.
And when you're talking about these kind of change initiatives, you mentioned like organizational change as well. Are you seeing changes in specific areas of the business, like maybe a specific business line, or are you seeing change across all functions, all aspects of these corporations that you're working with?
Absolutely. So, data is hot right now, and I don't see that slowing down. For example, I just left a project that was, building a digital authoring solution for a company in the area. So this was going to be like a Azure platform build out, but my job was to build the data model for it. Or that was my specific job. I was pretty involved in some of the original business case and some of the other stuff that went around it. But with regard to that, like that transformation was going to hit everywhere in the company. It was going to hit, where they were making, every piece of the product. So in my mind, to what I see specifically, I see a pretty broad-based hit to everything that's going on. An attempt to automate wherever possible and virtualize wherever possible as well. Just kind of cut down on their footprint, both economically and physically.
That's really great to hear. It seems like there's a lot of opportunity in this field and across various areas that people might be interested in. And that brings me to my last question, which is for people who are interested in getting into this field, what are some words of advice that maybe you would give to students graduating this semester or later on, who are looking to get into this type of consulting role or just technology related role? What are the blend of skills you look for that would constitute success in these type of roles?
What are we looking for? I mean, there's never going to be a shortage in need for people who have inquisitive analytical minds. That's just a constant, and that's true of every consulting company. Your Accentures of the world, your Masstechs of the world. There's always going to be that need. The challenge is some of the softer skills is like you said. A lot of what I see coming out of more recent college and even MBA hires is, there's a deep technical need in a lot of places, especially around cloud transformation, which is a lot of the work that we do. So understanding that stuff at a deep level is awesome. The interviews that I see going on for people who are relatively fresh from college with little experience, they're asking analytical questions. They're asking, how would you do this? How would you do that? It's kind of stuff that a lot of spreadsheets can do for you, but it's also about knowing what to do with those spreadsheets. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in that. So, if you really want to bring that into consulting, then I think the opportunity is there. Consulting comes with its own challenges. You're not in industry and you are working for a client. And sometimes that's hard. That line, drawing that line and remembering that you work for one company, but you get in very tightly with some of the people at these companies, especially if you're a long hauler. Like myself, I have a tremendous amount of experience and time at the beverage company I mentioned before. I have a lot of good friends. I've seen a lot of, I've seen a lot at that company, and I care very much for it. But I have to remember at the end of the day that I am an employee of Slalom Consulting, and that's the important thing. An important thing to remember if you want to get into a job like consulting is that you're going to come across those situations. There's short projects, there's long projects. Some people you'll meet briefly and you'll never see again. And such is life, of course. But I think there's certainly some challenges around consulting. So it's not all green grass. I won't shine you on like that. I find myself doing, especially as I've started to make more of a move into a leadership position, a lot more time around people management, a lot more time around just working on the business itself, helping with sales, helping with things like that. But I love that, and if that's the kind of thing that excites you, then I think there's a lot of opportunity in consulting. So, I mean, obviously I care for it very much and I tend to stick with it, um, but keep those things in mind. And let me come back to my original point, that inquisitive analytical mind, single most important thing I think companies are looking for right now, followed closely by probably some technical skills.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think all the students at the business school and across Brandeis definitely would resonate with that aspect of having the right blend of technical skills as well as those soft skills that help propel
Yeah,
you into not just the initial stage of your career, but also to the later stages, as you mentioned.
yeah,
Um, that's absolutely phenomenal. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today.
of course.
The insights that you've shared have been tremendously valuable. So once again, thank you so much.
Absolutely. You're welcome.